Vine stood in the kitchen, her arms crossed tightly over her chest as she stared out the window, the tension between her and Jungkook still lingering in the air, while he stood before her, staring at her back, not understanding why she was acting like this. Vine, talk to me, he demanded, and turned her towards him from her shoulders. You can't keep quiet and expect me to know everything. Vine looked at him with annoyance. Why were you talking to her for so long? She looked above in his eyes while asking, her voice firm and resolute. Jungkook's eyes flickered as he tried to remember. Who? Oh, her? She is nothing more than a friend, he said softly, eyes on hers. Are you acting like this just because of that? Wine. A friend? She scoffed as she looked away. That's funny because she seemed more like a flirt to me. She rolled her eyes. He so did not understand her. She usually doesn't act like that, but God knows what happened today. Jungkook. Come on, Vine. You can't be angry because of this. He shook her shoulders a bit. There's nothing going on between us. Vine. I saw the way you were laughing and drinking with her. Did you have to do this in front of me? There was silence for a minute. I was alone in the party, and you were drinking with only her, she said with red eyes that were aching, trying to control tears. He left her shoulders and stared at her silently for a minute. We met after a long time. We were just catching up. Is it that hard to swallow up? She looked above in his eyes with teary eyes. She nodded. I just don't understand why you need to be so friendly with everyone. Can't you see how it makes me feel? Go and catch up with her for all I care. Jungkook. Right. I will go to her. I'm tired of your doubts anyway. Fine. You must be tired of me as well, right? His eyes widened and heart pounded in his chest. Watch what you're saying, Vine, he said in a low voice, staring deep in her eyes. Don't try to come to me now. She shouted at him and turned away to go outside the kitchen. Vine, wait. He screamed behind her, but she didn't stop. He screamed again, but no use. Right, just go away. I don't care anymore, he shouted back. He clenched his fist as hard as he could and hit it hard on the kitchen counter. His knuckles turned red, but he didn't feel any pain. He went outside as well, covering his way towards the study room. He decided to distract himself from all of this for a while by working. Jungkook sat on his chair, his fingers tapping impatiently against the wood surface as he tried to focus on the paperwork in front of him. But his mind kept drifting back to the argument he had with Vine, the hurtful words they had exchanged still echoing in his ears. You must be tired of me as well, he sighed and rubbed his fingers on his forehead. He hit closed the laptop as hardly as he could. He wanted to go to her and ask her, apologize to her, talk to her, but he decided to leave her some time to calm her mind as well as himself. As the hours passed, he was growing increasingly restless, his need for Vine's attention and touch becoming almost unbearable. He missed the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her touch, the way she looked at him with love and adoration in his eyes. He needed her more than he admitted. When finally unable to take the silence any longer, Jungkook pushed back his chair and stood up, his eyes filled with determination. He strode across the room, his steps purposeful as he made his way towards Vine in the bedroom. After coming inside, his eyes widened a little when he saw her lying down on the bed, straight with her hands on her lower abdomen, her face covered in sweats and expressions telling him that how much pain she was in. He quickly went to her and sat beside her on the bed. Wine, what happened? He asked, tension etched across his forehead. Are you on your periods? She nodded relentlessly in pain, constantly moving right and left from the pain. You should have told me. His heart immediately started regretting leaving her alone in her condition, and she must have been acting so moody because of this. Jungkook's heart clenched at the sight of wine in pain. Jungkook's expression softened as he looked down at her. Just relax and let me handle everything. He carefully helped Wine sit up, propping pillows behind her to make her more comfortable. Then he disappeared into the bathroom, returning moments later with a warm towel and a glass of water. Here, drink this, he said, holding out the glass of water to her. It will help with the pain. Vine nodded gratefully and took a sip, feeling the cool water soothing her parched throat. Meanwhile, Jungkook placed the warm towel on her lower abdomen, applying a gentle pressure to ease her discomfort. As Vine relaxed against the pillows, Jungkook remained by her side, his presence a comforting presence in her pain, while continually rubbing his hands over the towel to massage her. It really helped her ease the pain, as he could see her expressions become lighter again. He slowed his hands down and brushed her hair back from her face, his touch tender and reassuring. Without hesitation, he reached out and gently kissed her forehead, his touch gentle and soothing. I'm so sorry, Vine. I should have been more attentive, he murmured, his voice filled with regret. I know you don't like this usually, and I could sense something was wrong, but I still reached out on you. Vine managed a weak smile despite the pain. It's okay, Jungkook. I should have told you, she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't going to talk to you as well, with the way you still cared about me, even after I shouted at you. She put her hand on his jaw. It gives me another reason to love you. He smiled and embraced her hand. I love you too, he murmured, his voice blazed with regret. I promise to pay more attention from now on. You mean everything to me, Vine, and I never want to see you in pain like this again. His eyes searched hers with a little redness in them. So the first thing you will do when you're in pain is reach me from now on. Promise? Vine reached out and took his hand in hers, squeezing it gently. Thank you, Jungkook, she whispered, her eyes filled with gratitude. You're always there for me when I need you the most. I promise to always tell you as the first thing. Jungkook felt a wave of relief wash over him as he pulled Vine into his arms. Holding her close, he buried his face in her hair, inhaling her sweet scent as he whispered words of love and gratitude. Thank you, Vine, he murmured, pressing a tender kiss to her forehead yet again. I don't know what I'd do without you. Vine smiled against his chest, her heart swelling with love for the man sitting close to her. She wrapped her arms around him, holding him tight as she savored the feeling of being in his arms once more. In that moment, all the anger and hurt of their earlier argument melted away, replaced by a deep sense of love and connection that bounded them together. But as they stayed there, wrapped in each other's embrace. Jungkook still had the nagging feeling of desire that still lingered within him. He craved Wine's touch, her kisses, her warmth, and he was determined to make her his once more. As they pulled away from each other, Jungkook's eyes darkened with desire as he looked at Wine, a mischievous glint in his gaze. Wine, he said, his voice low and husky. How about we make up for lost time? Wine's eyes widened in surprise as she realized what Jungkook was suggesting. She blushed furiously, her cheeks flushing pink as she tried to hide her embarrassment. Jungkook, we just made up, she protested weakly, her voice tinged with nervousness. But Jungkook wasn't done with just this. He stepped closer to her, his hands reaching out to gently cup her face as he leaned in to capture her lips in a passionate kiss. Wine's protest died on her lips as she melted into his embrace, her heart racing with it. As they kissed, the tension that had been simmering between them finally broke. They clung to each other desperately, their bodies pressed together in a fervent embrace as they lost themselves in the heat of the moment. Hours later, as they entwined in each other's arms, their bodies sated and spent, Wine couldn't help but smile as she looked at Jungkook. As Jungkook pressed a tender kiss to her shoulder, she knew that they would always find their way back to each other, no matter what obstacles lay in their path.